Welcome to TalentED, where again we share stories and insights from professionals making a difference in their fields. And I am Dr. Skanson, host here and owner of School Pro K-12. But here's the deal, everybody. Get ready to be inspired as we welcome one of our true education powerhouses, Dr. Angela Peery, to our show. She has an impressive 35 years of experience in the field. She's dedicated her life to transforming education. As the author of 16, I think I have that number right, 16 highly acclaimed professional books for educators. She has become a beacon, a guiding light for teachers around innovative strategies and practical insights. But it actually doesn't even stop there. So before stepping into the role of full-time author and consultant, I believe Angela has wore many hats, and she can probably tell you more about those. But I mean, we're talking things from like teaching, professor, national writing project. That expertise and passion has a long reach. So get ready. With that, welcome, Dr. Angela, and please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're talking to us from today, and maybe what you want to talk about.
Great. Well, thanks. That was that might be the best introduction I've ever had. That was really lovely. I'm coming to you from South Carolina. I live in coastal South Carolina, so I'm at home today, not traveling for work as I often am. I have been a teacher of middle school and high school English. I've been an administrator, as you mentioned, taught both undergraduate and graduate school courses. But for the last about 19 years now, I've been doing consulting full-time, doing research out in the field, writing professional books. I've worked in, I believe we're up to 45 states and 3 different countries now, and I continue to support educators all over the world, mainly in the United States, with helping them build curriculum. And I also have something I do that I think is a unique service, and that is providing literacy audits to districts. And I believe that's what we're going to talk a little about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a unique service that you offer. And it pairs well. Obviously, you can't do a literacy audit unless you know literacy. And that background has given you a unique perspective on that. So why don't you just tell us quickly, like, what is a literacy audit and why would it be important for any educational institution?
Well, a literacy audit, also called a literacy program evaluation, different places have different names that they'd like to call it in their systems or states. What we do, my team and I, when we go in for a literacy audit, is it's really a deep dive, an examination and analysis of the policies, practices, and results in a district regarding literacy instruction. So we interview folks. We have focus group meetings with groups of people like literacy coaches, perhaps. We observe as literacy instruction is going on. We go all around the building to try to get a sense of the learning environment. And we examine also curriculum materials, documents, anything available to us that the client makes available. And we're really just trying to see, are they doing the best they can to meet the goals that they have stated for literacy instruction in their system? Most places need a little bit of improvement. You know, we can all, generally we can all get better. We don't have 100% of our kids scoring well on every metric, but we do try to support districts and help them see some actions they can take immediately so they can leverage those and get a better success rate than what they're currently getting.
Those tactical steps must be really important. I know, most schools have a literacy plan. They have a literacy curriculum. We talk about guaranteed and viable curriculum, but there's so much more than just the curriculum. And I think what you're really getting into here is the practices that make a difference. If you had to name like 2-3 key components of those audits, what would it be?
Well, I think the observations in the classrooms are key. We try to send in multiple observers and at different times of the day, different class periods if we're at secondary. So we can really see what's happening on a day-to-day basis and not just, I've experienced this. I'm sure you've experienced this with accreditation and things like that. We always knew when the team was going to be in the building and we knew exactly when they might drop in. And what you're doing on a daily basis basis may not
Mm-hmm.
consistently be what you're doing when those folks are in the building. So we really try to get a sense of, and you mentioned this too, we want to see what your documents say. We are big on that guaranteed and viable curriculum, and do the goals and do the plans that are in your pacing guides and your curriculum documents really match up with what's going on in the classroom on a day-to-day and minute-by-minute basis. I would say that the observations are key, and then all the conversations we have, not just the short interviews that we do with teachers and principals, but just the conversations we have with teachers between classes. When we do these audits, also, we always have open time so teachers can come and ask us questions or share with us whatever they want to share, and really trying to get to understand the literacy culture of a building. What are their beliefs? How are those beliefs being
Yeah, so
carried out
important.
every day? Is the district mission and vision about literacy instruction really being lived? And that's what we're trying to find out. So I would say being in those buildings is key.
I imagine there's some transfer that happens when you start talking with administrators and the people that are doing walkthroughs and evaluations also from your practices to maybe even what they're looking for. So it's something that obviously there's an audit happening, but the long-term benefits of working with somebody like you is that transfer of knowledge as well.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, and I hadn't really planned to talk about this, but now that you've brought it up, when we are there doing our observations, and so we're looking not only at teaching, but the entire learning environment of the school. We're popping into the library to see how students use those services. We're doing all that kind of stuff. We always invite, as part of our work, we always invite administrators from the building level, district level, instructional coaches, literacy coaches, anybody else to go with us. And lots of times those people will do that and use their own evaluation or monitoring instruments that they have, so that they can collect data as well,
Gotcha.
which might be a little different from the data we're collecting. And then the conversations we have between those observations, I feel like if we're in a district and someone's paying for us to do this service for them, I want it to be a learning and growth opportunity for them.
Perfect.
So why not come along with us and see what you want to see as well?
And I imagine there's times where, you're not only finding areas of needed improvement, but you can also highlight the strengths that are happening and really help a district tell the literacy story of the things that are, shine a light on what's right.
Absolutely. We talk with the clients from the district level, building level, whoever the leadership team is prior to these audits. We really want to understand the professional development that has taken place over the last couple of years and whatever their initiatives are. And sometimes we see really high implementation. It's very gratifying for them. For instance, I went to a district a year or so ago, and they've spent a long time working on John Hattie's concept of teacher clarity and how that's communicated through learning goals and proficiency scales and that kind of thing. And we did see very high implementation. They ask us to look for that in addition to what we always look for anyway, our literacy elements we're looking for. And I think they were doing a great job, and I think they were very pleased to know that the money they had spent on professional development the last couple of years was really taking hold.
It's a great story to come back to your community, to your school boards, telling that story with some verification, of course. How long does a literacy audit take? Is this a day adventure, or what does this actually look like?
Well, that's a good question. So it's highly dependent on the number of teachers we're observing. So I will tell you the biggest literacy audit I've done was a school system in North Dakota, and it was 23 different school campuses, including a pre-K program all the way up through grade 12. We had different consultants on site at the elementary schools for a couple of weeks, and then some different consultants on site at the secondary schools for a couple of weeks. So it took quite a bit of time to do a system that large. We like to get all our observations in within a couple of weeks of each other. We don't want to just come in for 1 week so that everybody in the whole system knows we're just there that 1 week. It's also highly dependent on the subcontractors I use, my colleagues' schedules as well. Some of them still work full-time as superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals. But we can complete the on-the-ground work in a few weeks and with no interruption to the normal. We don't want anybody to do anything special for us. We really want to see what a normal school day looks like, and we try to schedule things as much as we can to be on normal school days, so not homecoming at the high school and that kind of thing. And then we do, if the client desires, we usually do an online survey component so people can give us some anonymous feedback. So we might be in a district a week or two, maybe 3 different weeks, and then it takes a month or 2 to pull together all the data from the observations, the surveys, the interviews. But from start to finish, we can usually do a whole process in about 2 to 3 months.
Wow. Sustaining positive change. I'm sure you have some stories that you could share with us. Maybe one of your favorite stories of coming out of an audit, of sustainability and positive organizational change. Do you have anything you want to share about any of the places that you've been, or maybe some highlights?
Well, what came to mind first when you were saying that was a middle school and a high school I worked at in Fargo, North Dakota.
Okay.
So when I did the literacy audit in Fargo, we only did like one sector of schools. So it was an audit for, I believe we had 7 total schools, and that included a few elementary and then 1 middle, 1 high school. One of the most positive results I think that came from that, and maybe it's because I was a former high school teacher and administrator myself, is change in high school across the board, across the curriculum, is very hard to achieve. And there has been, ever since that literacy audit, there has been an ongoing effort at that high school, the middle school too, but I feel like it's even taken better hold at the high school, which is amazing, for a writing across the curriculum effort, so that students write at least once a week a paragraph or something lengthier than that, pretty much in every class. Those teachers came together to create a paragraph rubric so that it doesn't matter if your teacher asks you to write an exit ticket in mathematics class, or if you're in chemistry and the teacher wants you to stop in the middle of the lesson and write something there. There are shared expectations, a little 6 or 7 bullet list of, when your high school teachers ask you to write a paragraph, this is what we expect. And another outgrowth of that was that the school has a social studies teacher, and either her entire schedule now, or at least more than half of her schedule, she is a cross-curricular literacy coach for that building. So I do hear from her time to time. Yeah, so she is sustaining, with the district's blessings as well, sustaining the work in that school. And then those practices have spread to the other high schools in the district as well.
And that came out of an audit. I mean, that's an incredible change.
It started with the audit.
Is there any misconceptions that you run into with literacy audits? Is it something that any clarifications you want to make for people before they think more clearly about having an audit?
Well, maybe it's, and I've discussed this with you, and I've discussed it with other people. We've come up with an acronym now called LEAD, and I'm starting to call these audits the LEAD process, and that stands for literacy efficacy audits for districts. And the word efficacy is really important.
Yes, it is.
I feel like sometimes maybe people think an audit, maybe they have that IRS connotation of you're getting audited and we're trying to catch you doing something wrong. Like, yeah, I don't know. So I really wanted the word efficacy there, because what we're all about is finding the effective practices of adults that are leading to student success, and accentuating those things that are working and helping people figure out how to make them work, even better. And then we're trying to also find, practices that could be enhanced, or, for instance, I will tell you that in a lot of the systems where we've included elementary schools over the past few years, I don't think this is any big surprise, and has been part of the push for new legislation. We were not finding in the lower grades quite enough phonemic awareness or phonics instruction, not as much as what we'd like to see. Now, I will tell you, we ground our reading audit processes. We go back to that National Reading Panel from the year 2000 and look at those pillars of reading instruction. But when we gave districts that information, they really thought they were doing more than they were once we looked at the data. So I think that was very enlightening for them, and they took steps to improve in those areas. Another thing I think we find at the secondary level a lot, teachers aren't doing nearly as much. They're not asking students for as much written output as they think they are. They're not giving enough students enough, opportunities to write and to revisit their writing and to write things of length. And that's, I think, one of the most surprising findings we see a lot at the secondary level. But once you see it, and you know that, hey, I'm not the only teacher struggling with how to get my students to write more, kind of everyone's struggling with that. And there are some great needs in writing, especially since the 2 years of COVID instruction, when kids didn't get a lot of practice or feedback or support with their writing. So once something is illuminated, then we as adults, I think that's the beauty of a literacy audit, is once something is highlighted or illuminated, the things that are working well, we can continue to get those to work well, and we can even increase what we're doing in those areas. But the areas where we're falling a little bit short, the whole idea is for us to work together as colleagues to address those areas.
We have such a unique opportunity in education that we get to work in iterations, right? So we have a season. We have 10th graders this year. We have 10th graders next year. That gives us the opportunity to simply do it better every time. There's not a lot the people that get to do that. There's professional athletes, maybe farmers. I hesitate to say politicians. I guess they have a season. But yeah, educators, we have a season, right? And we get to come back and we get to do it again. I have a fun question for you, Angela, as I'm going to change this a little bit, switch gears. For a lighthearted question and to end our interview, let's have a little fun with a literacy themed question. So, Angela, if you were to write a book about your experiences with literacy audits, what would your clever title be?
Oh dear.
I know this is
come up with
it's a little hard. It's a hard question.
Well, so the first thing that came to my mind is a title already taken by Charles Dickens, and that's Great Expectations.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know if I can come up with one much better, but and not that book is, there's some bleak stuff in that book. But I think with the literacy audit process, you become just clearer on what your big goals and aspirations are for your students and their literacy. And then you also get to better understand what you're doing well and where you can improve. And as you said, I really enjoy going back and working with people after this process. If they feel they have a need in cross-curricular writing, maybe we can address that. Another big area I've addressed the last few years is academic vocabulary. Are we helping kids learn all those important, not just the specific terms in your discipline, but cross-curricular academic words and morphology and that kind of thing? So to me, the audit is just a beginning data collection, examination phase, and then there are really a lot of great things that can happen after. I thought you were going to ask me to write a tagline if I was a Real Housewife of South Carolina or something. So that would have been hard too.
Do you have a favorite book, like fiction, nonfiction? Like, what's your genre?
I do have a very favorite book that I've read probably 20 times.
To
Kill a Mockingbird. And I've been to Harper Lee's hometown in Alabama and traipsed around on the remains of Truman Capote's house he lived in when he was a kid. And that was a couple summers ago, and it's one of my most treasured memories, going there to see everything that went into Harper Lee's mind to help create what I think, it's one of the most beloved books in the world. So
do you have a favorite children's book for all our elementary people out there?
I do love all things Dr. Seuss. And of course, as a teacher, Oh, the Places You'll Go is a really good one. I used to teach a high school class of seniors, and it was a psychology 101 type elective. and trying to get them interested in becoming educators. It was a partnership with a local college. And we always had a little grant that at the end of the year when my seniors were graduating from that class, everybody got a copy of that book. And I wrote them a little note in it.
For fun.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, Angela. Thinking about audits and literacy, do you have a final call to action for our listeners today?
Well, I was just rereading some professional books recently and rereading some things that I actually wrote myself. And I believe more strongly than ever that, high levels of literacy are perhaps our most important civil right.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel very strongly. I've been in the profession a long time. I remain in the profession because I want children to leave their 13 years of schooling with as high a level of literacy as possible so that they can have fulfilling lives and be good citizens and not be taken advantage of and all those great things. So I continue to feel that that's extremely important.
Awesome. Well, Angela, thanks for sharing your knowledge, your experiences. And of course, if anybody's interested, you can contact School Pro and we will get you hooked up with Angela to do some amazing literacy audit work in your school, in your district. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Great. Thank you.
And everybody else, thank you for tuning into this episode of TalentED. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, future guests, please contact us and let us know. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing. I don't want to say keep reading, and stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive. Thanks, everybody.